Eli, Eli. Greetings, greetings. Dr. Ayman Black on the Metamorphosis. In the middle, in the middle of the Easter, Christian world in high celebration. Christian world celebrating murder, death. The Christian world celebrating a resurrection and ascension. Holy for things. Death, resurrection, ascension. What do all those things mean? But before we even deal with those issues, I want to mention as Rastafari, the Friday that is called Good Friday in the Christian doctrine is observed as Bad Friday for Rastafari. Yeah, Bad Friday. And why is it a Bad Friday? This time in 1963. In 1963, the government of Jamaica, under the leadership of Alexander Bustamante and the Jamaica Labour Party, led an assault. We're at the forefront of a massacre. A massacre in Jamaica, 1963. On a Friday that was supposed to be a Good Friday, ended up being a Bad Friday for Rastafari. The movement of Jah people, established in principle by Leonard P. Howell in the 1930s, represented a foundation grounded in spirit and resistance. Rastafari. So this force became a part of the Jamaican culture from the middle 30s. But it was always a thorn in the side of the English and the British society that governed Jamaica. And so Rastafari became literally an enemy of the state. And the teachings of Rastafari were founded primarily in the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey and in the teachings and utterances of His Imperial Majesty, Rastafari. So Rastafari is a cultural resistance movement whose focus is on African liberation, black unity, peace and love. Rastafari were unwilling to identify themselves culturally as British and embrace the identity of Ethiopian and use the Bible, the same book given unto us by the owners. That Bible became also the foundation to justify the Ethiopian foundation, as the Bible speaks of Egypt and the Bible speaks of Ethiopia. So Rastafari is a element and a powerful fiber in the culture of Jamaica. Rastafari established a community in the parish of St. Catherine called Pinnacle. And it was a template for economic self-reliance. It was a template of a community development and trade. Yes, it was like the Black Wall Street in the United States, an economic center. And just like the Black Wall Street in America was burned down by white people, Pinnacle was invaded by the British and their army. The Jamaica army was sent to destroy Pinnacle and to scatter Rastafari all around the islands, seeking new places of refuge. So the Friday that Christians celebrate as the day of the death of Jesus, and they call it a Good Friday. We don't see murder as anything good. We can't overstand, I and I, how can the death of a man transform the day into a good day? What is so good about Good Friday? From Rastafari perspective, there is nothing good because the state terrorized Rastaman. Massacre people, massacre, where man with locks were held down and trimmed right across the island. Rasta woman have to be hiding Rasta man in a closet and all them things there. Police were given license. Police were informed that the cemetery can hold them. There's enough space. Shoot and ask questions later. That happened in Jamaica history, no people. That has been a part of the Jamaican history and the struggle and the experience of Rastafari on this island. And the destruction of Pinnacle forced Rastafari to flee. And according to the historical documentations, the next place of great refuge ended up being a place called Bako Wall. Again, Rastafari being held in scorn because of the ideology of black liberation. And what was an affront to the English and the British was that Rastafari embraced Haile Selassie as the divinity. That is the rocks of the contradiction in the Roman society and Rastafari. The Rastafari embraced the idea of the Son of God. Rastafari embraced the idea of Jesus the Christ. Rastafari also acknowledged the lineage of the Christ that takes him into the lineage of Solomon up to his majesty. So this is a forever thorn where the Rastaman will always begin to see the Son of God through the images and the lens of an African. And that was the instruction by Marcus Garvey that we should see our gods through our own spectacles. So Bad Friday, recorded in Black man history in Jamaica, that terrible day. And the discrimination against Rastafari has always been a part of the culture of Jamaica, the plantation society. So 1966, Haile Selassie made a physical visit to Jamaica with the government's hope that he would dispel the notion that he was being viewed as God. And the Majesty spoke no English in his journey. So no one could say what he had to say about what they wanted him to say. It's an vision that the government had that Selassie's visit would diminish Rastafari, worked totally against their hope. Rastafari exploded. Greatest welcome ever given to any individual into the island was the greeting of Haile Selassie. Hey man, His Majesty come to Jamaica 1966. So Rastafari has been here, will always be here. But within the Christian framework now, we're looking at death, resurrection, and ascension. What I want to look at in this particular discourse and time is that if we follow the story of the death and the resurrection literally, we lose time. Because the narrative gives you the impression that the crucifixion took place on a Friday evening. That's the timing we get through the literature. And in that Friday, after crucifixion, we are told that he rose from the dead. He was resurrected 3 days later. It's just that if we count Friday to Saturday as one day, Friday evening to Saturday evening, one day. Saturday evening to Sunday evening, 2 days. So where is the third day? So Sunday could never be a day of the resurrection if death took place on the Friday. But we don't examine these things. We just inhale the story without thinking. So I'm saying, even according to the story, there's a flaw. No, there's a greater flaw in the definition of what is dead and what is the evidence that an individual is dead. Is it the brain stop working? Is it the heart stop working? There needs to be examination. And according to the narrative, there is no examination of the body along medical lines. So there is no evidence of death. But the mythology continues that the one who died overcome, as they want to put it now, overcome death. And we as people should be impressed because we are also afraid of death. Any imagery of any individual overcoming death leaves a strong impression in the mind. And what is there to overcome when death is natural? Birth and death are part of the cycle. Life is continuous. So what is there to overcome? What we want to overcome is ill health. We want to overcome shelterlessness. So maybe we have the thing focused in a different kind of way. So we are caught other people psychologically between death and resurrection in the narrative of a savior. And there is no evidence of anybody dying from nails to the hands and the feet and looking to the side. So it's a story. But the story gets more compounded now when we hear about not the resurrection, but no, the ascension. What really is the ascension? And how can intelligent people now transform that narrative of a resurrected body now that was going to leave the planet and travel up beyond the clouds? They will lose practicality. They will lose reality. So we have to be using extreme imagination to visualize a body that was on a cross nailed up, that has taken itself down, has risen out of a state that was once dead, and is now leaving the planet. The power of elevation and levitation to rise beyond the International Space Station, to rise beyond the third, where the fighter jets fly, to rise beyond where. So we're stuck in heaven with a body that is now sitting beside a father, somewhere way, way, way beyond the moon. There is a body of Jesus in the ascension modes, sitting now beside his father. So there are two men. There are two men above our heads. Two men in our heavens. God and his son, Jesus. And I on the earth. The majority of people who involved in the story are now waiting for that son to return to this planet, alive and breathing. This is outrageous. No equipment. It's not practical. So I'm saying I now have to revisit this construct called the ascension. Isn't that a fiction? The whole story is fictional from the birth. The birth, the death, the resurrection, the ascension. And if you embrace those ideologies, then you take your meditation and your consciousness off the earth. And And you begin to look for your own destiny through a redemption, through a savior who is above your head, sitting in the cosmos, two white men, to be the salvation for the many millions of black people on this planet. What a drama. Yes, we are trapped in the belly of Christianity, the doctrine of the salvation, and the idea that you need savior. Traore has come to show us that salvation rests in your own efforts and the consciousness you have toward yourself and the people. So if we were to turn some of that energy that we have up in the sky inwards, we may elevate ourselves individually and become a powerful group as a collective. So this is just a little perps. Also, Christianity in this period where people are captivated with Easter and the resurrection and the birth and the death and the whole Jesus constructs. And the image will remain the same, a European image. And if the image is not European and we put it into black, it's still a destructive force because it's not about whether Jesus was black or white or whether his name was Yahshua or not. It's the ideology of reliance. It's abandoning self-reliance to become reliant now on the powers of Jesus. So before there was Jesus, it suggests that we had no powers. There's a doctrine reach us, powerful doctrine. Doctrine that we think we can't survive without it. But anytime we rise to the level where we recognize that salvation comes through intuition, not through dependency, then we also break the poverty. The poverty is grounded in dependency. And as we remain as a people dependent upon ideas of a savior and of a son to return, to remove all the destruction, then we're living in the illusion. Yeah, so this is it. Tomorrow they call it Easter Monday. But beyond the Sunday is Easter Monday. And then the society returns to normality. Yeah, just passing through, blocking us out. Rastaman vibration.